What's up everyone? Today we're going to discuss my most frequently asked question, which is how to manual. I'm going to give you my best tips so that you can start your journey on being able to manual like a pro in no time.
Yeah. One thing you gonna learn about me, ain't nobody putting word like me. Can't drip, can't sauce like me. Whipping it up, I'm a major key. I am the one, not the two or the three.
Alrighty, so tip number one, I would recommend starting to practice your manuals on flat ground. This is because manualing on flat ground can give you a good sense of where the bike is underneath you, where the balance point of your bike is, and where your body position has to be, because there's no jumps to help you get your front wheel in the air or control the manual. First things first, I'll throw on some flat pedals. But manualing on flat ground on clips can be quite dangerous, because if you do somehow loop out, you aren't going to be able to jump off. And I would also recommend having a play with your brake and getting used to riding with one finger on it, so that if you do start getting high in the manual, you can tap the brake and it'll throw the front wheel down. So as you can see here, I've got 3 cones set up. I've got a yellow cone, which is a starting point, pink cone, which is 5 meters, and an orange cone, which is 10 meters. So back when I was a kid, I literally would go out on the driveway and try and manual 1 concrete square until I could do that consistently, and then I would move to 2 concrete squares, 3, and so on and so forth. You can literally never do too much practice on flat ground, because you can eventually just get so good at bike control that you can keep just manualing for a long time. Now that you're set up, you've got your cones, your bike's all prepped, and you got your helmet on. A big misconception in BMX is a lot of people will get told to lean back when they're trying to manual. Whereas a tip that I tell with a lot of guys I coach, and has been a great success for us in training here, is I tell people to focus on dropping their hips, not throwing their weight to the back. So what I mean by this is, when you're here and you throw your weight back, a lot of people will start here and just go like this, and then both their arms and legs are extended, which means they have no bike control. I would rather someone start here and then drop their hips into the manual, so that then when they're in the manual, they've got bent legs to the point where they can actually manipulate their legs up and down to control the manual, where they need the front wheel to go higher or lower. So on a normal flat ground manual, you would start low like this to be able to pull on the front wheel, and then you would go hips low and then extend the arms. As you can see then, my center of gravity was back and there was no weight on the front wheel. So we'll go into some proper examples now, and you'll get to see what it looks like. So, hips. But as you can see then, my wheel was too low to get into the balance point. So now I'm gonna load a bit harder, pull back and drop my hips harder, and then I should be able to get the front wheel a little bit higher off the ground. And there you have it. Right then, my bike went straight into the balance point, and as I felt like I was going to start flipping backwards, I just grabbed a little bit of brake. An extra note on this is, if you're comfortable doing it, you should get used to looping out. It can give you a lot of confidence to the fact that if you do ever need to jump off the back, you're capable of letting go of the bike. Alrighty, so next step, now that we've manualed to the pink cone, which is 5 meters, we now need to try and go longer. So when you come in with a little bit of speed like that, 5 meters actually becomes very short. So now that we're going longer, we're gonna actually have to manipulate either our brake lever or the bend and flexion in our legs to be able to control the manual all the way to the next cone. So basically, to make this sound simple, the more you bend your legs, the higher your front wheel will come. The more you extend your legs, the more weight that will go towards the front of the bike, and then the more the front wheel will actually drop towards the bike. So that is why we manipulate our legs in the manual, to raise the front wheel and drop the front wheel to keep it within the balance point. So my next little tip, while we're still on the flat ground and keeping it simple, is going to be eye position. So a lot of the people you'll also tend to see that when they manual, they'll look at their front wheel because they're trying to see where it is so that they can control it. So we've got to remember, when we're manualing, we always want to look where we want our front wheel to go to. So for example, here on the flat ground, if my goal is the 5 meter mark, I would be looking around where the pink cone is, because that's where I want my front wheel to drop. This also comes into play when we're on the track. If we're manualing a double, we don't want to look at our front wheel or like what's going on with our bike below us. We need to trust our bike, and then we can look at the target landing where we want our front wheel to drop, and then we can put the front wheel there and drive off the backside. So we've got to remember, this this works out for every skill in BMX. We're always going to go where our eyes are looking, so make sure your eyes are focused on the correct thing. All right, so this is my double that I've drawn. But this next step, as we bring this manual to the track, we're gonna break down the positioning of the jump. So I kind of did this in the pumping video a while ago, but we gotta remember that there's minimization points and speed points of every jump. Break the jump into a section here where we get to the top of the crest, then when we get to the bottom, and then when we're at the next peak. So as you can see, we've got section 1, 2, 3, and 4. When we're coming up section 1, we want to be letting the bike come into us so that we're low on the bike and that we have bent enough legs and arms so that we can then extend into the manual. So that's, as we're coming up this section, let the bike come up to us. So we start tall here, come into the crest, and the bike gets more compressed into our body so that when we get to this dotted line, we can then extend into the next backside. When we're manualing, we only want to push the manual for the duration of section 2. So from the top of the crest to the bottom of the gully. If we push any further into this zone, this is what I'll call the danger zone. If you're driving your bike into the ground in a manual and you start hitting the uphill section of the next roller, this is when people loop out. So they'll hit the bowl, and then because they keep pushing, they'll kick the bike and it'll then flick the bike from under them. So we always want to stop manualing at the bottom of this bowl, and then section 3 is where we'll transfer our weight forward. So because the jump starts coming up back into our bike and we've stopped driving, this will naturally cause the pressure of the jump to drop the front wheel of the bike into the next lander. Then this transition between section 3 and 4 is where our eyes should be targeted the entire duration of the manual. Alrighty, so I've got the track set up. I've got a orange cone at the bottom where I'm going to start the minimization, a pink cone at both peaks, and a yellow cone in the bottom of the gully. So I'm now going to demonstrate exactly what I showed you on the board here. I'll try and do it as slow-mo as possible, so then you can see my body position, the way the bike moves under me, where I'm driving to, where my eyes are looking, and then where I'm able to place the front wheel. Alrighty, so as you would have seen then, as I was coming up the face of the jump, I was letting my body load into the bike, so I was nice and low, so that when I got to this pink point, I didn't have to just jerk back on the bike. I could let the bike come up further, and as the bike started coming off of the lip, then I started extending my legs through to the center of the jump, which is here where the yellow cone is. And then once I got to the yellow cone, you would have seen, I will then transition my body weight. So I'll be driving my legs to here, and then as I finish driving my legs, you then start using your upper body and your arms to pull yourself forward so that when you get to this pink point, the front wheel drops and you're back in your aggressive pumping position. So just remember that this body weight transition point of the jump is also the most important, because like I said earlier, this is what can also be called the danger zone. Because if you do keep driving like this, your bike is bound to just flip, and that's how you end up on your butt. So remember, once you complete the first part of the manual is not complete until you transfer your body weight forward and catch that backside. Alrighty, so moving on to double manuals, it is very similar to this. The only thing that we're going to basically deduct is the body transition part. When we come into the lip, we're still going to preload, we're still going to extend the first section, but when we get to this middle section here, between 2 and 3, we're not going to throw our body weight forward. We're going to continue hanging a little bit towards the back of our bike, so that then on this section, when we float back up, we basically let the bike reload back into us. So then at the top of the next roller, we can then extend again and repeat onwards. We only bring the body weight transition part back into a double manual or triple manual or quadruple manual on the final section where we want to drop the front wheel. So we got to remember, this entire section here where we transfer our body weight to the front of the bike is only when we're trying to get the front wheel back to the ground. Alrighty, so I'm going to drop in now. I'm going to do a double manual, a triple manual, and a whole straight manual. But I want you to notice that when I get to the body weight transition phase of the jump from the original manual, I'm not going to do this and pull myself forward. I'm going to keep my arms extended, and I'm going to reload just with my hips. Alrighty, so as you can see there, I just did the double manual and the triple manual at a pretty moderate pace. So this is a great way to learn them because they are a very technical skill, and you'll see a lot of people go to the track and do a double manual flat out by accident, but I've seen it end up horribly wrong a lot of times. So I would say practice the skill at a slower pace and in your flat pedals. Practice using your brake for safety, and then start speeding up to race pace as you get more comfortable. But don't try and rush these skills because they're very dangerous. It can go wrong very quickly. If you want to learn this and get good at it and confident with it, make sure you're at the track a lot, out on the street, and practice it over and over and over and become one with your bike, because manualing is all about feeling what's going on with the bike below you without having to look at it, and being able to constantly adjust to what the bike's doing and what the track's doing. So it's not something that someone can just tell you about, and it's not really something that can just be taught. You have to do it over and over so that you can develop that feeling through the bike and through your own body, and then you can learn to manage and control the manual at all different speeds. So I'm going to go in now. I'm going to do the double manual and the triple manual a little bit faster. I am still on flat, so it won't be race pace, and then we'll do some full straight manuals. Going a little bit faster, all of my body movements had to be faster, similar to what I explained in the pumping video. The quicker you hit jumps, the quicker you've got to do them actions, because we still only have, doesn't matter if you're traveling 15 kilometers an hour or 40 kilometers an hour, the down section of a jump is still the same length. So the quicker you're traveling across it, the quicker you've got to move down it and get ready for the next section. You got to ride the track how it is, because the track's not going to change. So make sure you keep complete control and you move the way you need to get across the track seamlessly. Just to practice balance and have some fun. You would never use it in a race, but I'm going to try and manual the whole straight, and I'm going to switch my pedals backwards every single time. First go, I somehow still know how to ride a bike, kinda. Now do the last straight, so just notice that now we're on a lot smaller jumps. My movements are a lot shorter and sharper. I do the big movements and the long drives on the big jumps, and then as they get smaller, we get shorter and sharper to match the pace of the jumps. And just like that, we've done 3 straights. So just to end the video and show how endless the opportunities are when you start learning these skills, I'm going to do a couple fun runs where I manual opposite foot forward, switch midway, go into nose manuals, and you'll be able to see the endless opportunities that you have to progress with these skills once you learn the bike control, the balance, and everything in between, learning where your body is, how it's moving on the bike. And you'll also see the benefits of looking ahead, getting ready for the next obstacle, and so on and so forth. So thanks for watching. Hope you all learned something, but I'm gonna have a little bit of fun. And I'll see you in the next one. First go. How on earth? I was not expecting to do that first go. Considering how much I was struggling to even film this video, some of the riding ended up actually okay. All right, that's the end. We'll see you in the next one.